Not out of the woods yet. I still have to play this crazy endgame. Just to play Yoko Fudori, this is what I signed up for. Hi everyone, as you saw in that clip, this was a game played in the opening, Yoko Fudori. In English, sometimes it's called side pawn picker or side pawn capture. I played this game in the World Shogi League against Team France while playing for Team USA. The World Shogi League is the highest amateur league played online. Now, this means this was a very important game, as it was our first match against another country this year. In fact, it was the first game played of that match as well. Yoko Fudori is an extremely difficult opening, and I'm going to go ahead and give a quick idea of it, as well as talk about how the game started here. Now, I prepared this opening ahead of time, and I have played it for a long time. But the reason I chose to prepare it specifically for this game was because I looked at my opponent's games, dozens of them going back about 8 months, and saw that he had only played this opening 4 times, but that he was more than willing to play it, and that he had played it in a World Shogi League game before. Now, I did make a bit of an innovation and chose to go for a difficult sideline that I have known for a long time, expecting my opponent might not know it all that well, since he had only played a couple of games in this difficult opening. Now, as the game started, Yoko Fudori is a rapid attack in double static rook, characterized by quick advances of the pawns and open bishops. Now, it of course still can turn into some kind of bishop exchange, but from this position, with the pawn exchange, it's definitely going to become some kind of Yoko Fudori. My opponent has one last move to try and decline it if he wants, but I knew from preparation that he would not, and in this position he goes ahead and takes the pawn. Thus the name side pawn capture. Of course, I, being Gote, should go ahead and keep popping my opponent's moves and take this free pawn as well. And then take the bishop, and I lose. Okay, maybe not. What if I take this way? I think you can see the problem here. Taking the pawn is not okay. So, Gote has to do something about this situation. Well, the main move is the most natural move. Just moving this bishop up, and now if they trade the bishops, we're totally fine. Maybe gold or knight takes. Knight seems a bit more natural. Taking this bishop is basically never played, for good reason. Now, there is another move, knight jump, and this was initially what I was preparing. The idea here is to push this edge pawn, bring out the bishop eventually. Obviously, we're not just going to let them take the knight. And sometimes we can make a rapid attack like this, hitting the head of the king. It can be very powerful. There's also one move played only by sociopaths, which is to trade this bishop and accept a worse position for some crazy attacking chances, maybe. The bishop trade is not particularly good, but it is still played. I played none of those moves. Instead, I played a secret weapon that I've been preparing for quite a long time, just moving the king up. Now, the purpose of this is that by defending the gold this way, now if there's a bishop trade, I'm okay. And if pawn push, one of the most natural moves, I have a dangerous trap of my own pawn push. Of course, I'm not playing for a trap, and this is a good move anyway. But if captures the pawn, this powerful pawn drop wins the game. If bishop takes, rook takes. If gold takes, pawn drop, takes, and, well, that's good enough. If knight jump, that pawn drop. And if pawn drop, then simply this exchange is more than enough for the rook. Of course, if they take, then you take the silver. Yeah. Let's say this line. This is more than enough for a rook, of course. No. What was played in the game was not that move. I also prepared this move with a lot of time. My opponent chose this move, one of the main moves in the position. And we'll see the game from here. Rook back, okay. So this is another line I was preparing. I had prepared for a couple other moves like the one I talked about. And here, I decided to pull my own rook back. This has multiple purposes. Notably, I'm threatening a pawn drop here in some instances. And it again is it's very similar to the line where my bishop has moved up, except my bishop hasn't. So, by some regard, maybe I saved a move, and that is obviously very valuable if it turns out to be that way. It looks dangerous that there can be a tactic like this, followed by a bishop drop, and after saving my rook, something like this. Now, such a line is obviously quite dangerous, but here my rook would be defending the gold, so it's okay, I guess. But instead, I could also play rook here, for instance. I don't know if this is the best move, but it's another option. Okay, now if bishop takes, it would be rook takes instead, and I'm making the counterattack like this. So lines like that were possible. Instead, my opponent doesn't make an exchange and instead drops the pawn, preventing any of my threats, and I continue with my plan of gold to 5-1. This is a very weird-looking move, but it is building a castle, because I'm bringing the defending general closer to my king, connecting things together, and this is still a very open shape where my king has multiple ways to run away if it has to, so it can become quite solid. Pawn drop here is an option. I was considering in the game also dropping the pawn here instead, but I decided on the lower pawn drop. And we have two castles decided. So my opponent's castle was a shape known as central house. This is characterized by these two golds moved out like this, with the king in the middle. Now, often there will be silvers here, or here, or here, or here, but we really focus just on the golds and the king. The purpose of central house, especially in an aerial fight, like double wing attack or side pawn picker, is that they control a lot of space. This is a very wide castle that protects almost the whole camp. Assuming there are knights here and lances here, in fact, there are no drops in the camp with this very limited setup. So, for a game that's going to be very aggressive with lots of trades and lots of things that could be dropped in the camp, this kind of castle can be efficient for protecting the camp. However, the king is not particularly solid. Take, for example, a knight drop here already attacks the head of the king, as does a lance drop here, or a bishop drop here. I'll even say here, because such a bishop drop is actually thematic in a lot of side pawn picker sorts of games. In that regard, it's not a strong castle, but it has the goal of being very wide and protecting the whole camp. My castle in this game was a variant of a castle called Nakahara's King. This uses this gold as a defender, along with this gold and silver clip shape that protects quite strongly. Because the silver and the gold protect each other, well, this gold is tucked away in a way that's very hard to get at and controls a lot of squares around the king. Now, because of the position of this king, it's a little harder to attack with a knight drop. A lot of variants of Nakahara's King actually leave the king on the bottom, so it is a bit of an effect of the variation of opening I played that my king is advanced one square and a little bit more open to certain kinds of attacks than it would be, particularly maybe a knight drop here or here. In fact, I talk a lot about how knight drops could be a threat, or talked to myself about it during my recording of the game. And this square here becomes a key point later on. As the game continues, I went ahead with a bishop exchange to continue building up. My silver belongs here. And I have a plan of continuing to advance the silver and potentially attack with it. Notice these are my defending generals, and that means we castle with 2 golds and a silver, so if I have an attacking silver, it would actually be potentially this one. It looks a bit strange, but that is a way of playing. Silver comes up. Yeah, maybe this fine is looking better, but then silver can not come here because there's still a pawn here. So push this edge for now, and then if they push this edge, I push here, threatening to push the edge again, takes, pawn drop takes, and then push here. Or push here first, and then after takes, push the edge takes. Pawn up takes, bishop drop. Pushing the edge pawn here was a bit of a passing move. I didn't really know what to do yet, but I had a couple notable plans. If they push this edge pawn back, there are situations where I can sacrifice this pawn. After captures, drop a pawn here, and drop a bishop here to go after this lance. I can't do that immediately, but it is a plan for the future. They do push back the edge pawn, and I push here. Now, I have a very powerful consideration. Depending on what happens, I can sacrifice this pawn. After captures, I can sacrifice this pawn, captures, sacrifice this pawn, captures, and drop the bishop. This would be a fork, hitting the lance, and this important pawn, after which I could sacrifice the bishop and recapture with the rook. That would be a winning position. My opponent plays here, which is a very nice move because it blocks this diagonal and also prepares to advance their knight. I continue on the opposite edge, and now I have ideas again of an edge attack over here somehow. Jumping like this. It can be pretty aggressive. I decided to just jump my knight first. They jump their own knight up, and I go for it. In hindsight, I think this was premature. I could have definitely prepared this more and maybe gotten a better outcome out of the edge attack, but you're gonna see what happened in the game. Pawn captures, pawn drop to 9-7. Now, the idea behind this move is after a knight takes, I can take the pawn. After a lance takes, I can jump the knight. And then here. Okay, I don't necessarily need to play that move order. Actually, jumping the knight isn't even the best move. I can just drop this bishop right away, and this is a very powerful fork. And after a natural-looking silver advance, it's actually a blunder because of this bishop draw, forking the rook and the lance. This bishop counter looks strong, but I can abandon the rook because I'm also attacking this rook. So if you take, I take the rook, you take the bishop. I can even swing my rook over here and then promote the pawn. It's pretty complicated. Okay. Instead, I missed that they can drop their bishop here right away, preventing this bishop draw, while also attacking the rook. So I had to back off my rook. I had to decide between a few moves, by the way. The first option was to go up, but I wasn't so sure what would happen after silver comes up. Simply, I have to back off anyway, and now this silver is helping to defend, so I didn't like that line. Instead, I decided to go all the way back. And I wasn't concerned about this attack at the head of my knight, because I could, for one, just bring the rook back and then capture the pawn. Something like this. And it's quite okay, especially after a knight jump like this. Okay, I just wasn't worried about that line. Naturally, my opponent went ahead with the silver advance, and now obviously we see that rook going back is superior to the rook having gone up, because then we would be in this same position, except it would be my opponent's turn rather than my turn. I went ahead and jumped the knight here to support this pawn. If he can take the pawn for nothing, say with the lance, in this position where my bishop drop won't really help, then all of a sudden my whole edge attack was kind of for nothing, and my opponent has a big attack over here. Obviously that's unacceptable. Knight to 8-5 is supporting that pawn and looking to trade pieces if he ever tries to capture it. My opponent backs off his rook, and I wasn't really sure what the purpose of this was. It is a bit defensive, but maybe it was overly defensive. Seeing that this rook left, I saw that this pawn was weak and this pawn was weak. So I made a powerful bishop drop, bishop to 5-4, hitting both the pawns. After taking this pawn, if my knight ever disappears, I'll always be looking to sacrifice this bishop and breaking with the rook. My opponent decides to push here, now encouraging me to grab this pawn. I don't have a pawn in hand, and I can take this with check, so I decided to pick it up and back off the bishop. Notably, now that that's happened, I'm threatening to drop a pawn here. My opponent redrops this pawn, which is very aggressive, and I retreat my silver. Now, this square is going to be a point of contention going forward. The rook came back, defending this square, and I decided to attack the edge, now that I have a pawn in hand. And retreat the pawn again. Now, the reason I take this pawn again here is because once again I didn't have a pawn in hand. But it gets a bit more tricky than that. If the silver retreats to try and attack my bishop, now I have the bishop sacrificed. If the gold advances, it's a bit weakening, and after my bishop leaves, maybe I'll have some threats going forward. But after pawn drop, which was played in the game, there's another trick going on. In fact, this silver is completely trapped by its own pieces. And there's this pawn drop threatening to capture the silver. First, I just back off the bishop, and my opponent goes for a knight jump. This is obviously a very dangerous move. There's a lot of pieces attacking this important square now. He is trapping the silver too slow, like do I die if I trap the silver? I shouldn't be. I should be okay with that, the silver's dead. Pawn sack takes, pawn drop takes. Now takes, silver drop, and run, good to leave the attack heavy, and my rook will break through in a moment, it should be good enough. Okay, I'm gonna take a quick moment here to talk about a shogi tactic called speed counting, because it is relevant in this game. Speed counting is honestly something that is gonna be a bit strange for beginners, but is quite important in our endgames, especially difficult endgames. Basically, if you can't calculate every move all the way to the end, speed counting is a way to alleviate that a little bit while still giving yourself a very, very good calculation of what's going on. And this is a very simple position to do the speed counting of. We can see this lance cuts off this king, this lance cuts off this king. What that means is that, we're assuming nothing's in hand, of course. Whoever moves here is gonna win, because these pawns are just as far from the king as they are, so. If this person goes first, now they have 1, 2, 3 moves they need to make, whereas this person who's going second also needs 1, 2, 3 moves they need to make. And now it's 2. When we have 1 move to mate, we also have another word for that, direct mate, sumero. And here, space. So, if we take this position, if it'll back up for me, take this one, here, where we're both attacking 2 away, if it's my move and I need 2 moves to mate, and I make an attacking move, then I will stay faster. But, say I were to pass a move, then suddenly I am 1 move slower, so I will lose. So speed counting is very, very important, because it is our main way of knowing who's winning in a difficult endgame. Shogi endgames are so complicated, there's so many things on the board, a lot of times we can't actually calculate move for move who wins in what situation. Yeah, so fun to know. 1, 2, 3 moves to mate versus 1, 2, 3 moves to mate. So the person who has 3 moves to mate, and it is their turn, will get there first. In this case, this is 2 moves to mate against 3 moves to mate, but it's this person's turn. 3 is not faster than 2, so 2 will win. Mate. Okay. This is a tactic that I used during the game. Whether or not very precisely is up to your best judgment, honestly. But that explains a little bit of what happens in the ongoing moves. Okay. Now I could always cut off the rook this way too, with a silver drop. Obviously not really what I want to use a silver for, but it's possible. Okay. Yes, taking the knight is dangerous. Am I not faster here? If so, how? 1, 2, 3, and still not quite a mate. 1, 2, 3. Is that a threat mate? I should be faster. I should be faster. And if I feel slower, I can maybe even defend for, like this, defend this fold. I shouldn't defend the gold. I shouldn't defend anything. Let's say then token sack, gold takes, and then take the silver is super good for me. Okay, I have to take that for sure. I think that's a blunder, because that speeds me up. By a lot. By a lot. Like a lot. Not out of the woods yet. I still have to play this crazy endgame. I chose to play Yoko Purori. This is what I signed up for. Nothing. But the last key position I'm really going to talk about here, this was a very difficult part of this endgame for me to consider, because there are actually a lot of natural moves here for me. I even considered things like dropping a silver here, attacking this rook, and potentially cutting off this king's escape route in the future. However, I felt like such a move is too slow, especially when I'm being attacked directly. Initially during the game, I had first thought about this and this attack for the opponent. But there's an even faster attack I have to worry about with pawn promotion immediately. So. That does come with a check, but not a mate. So I'm not terrified of it, but it is something to be aware of that my opponent does have an immediate way to attack my king as soon as I give up a move. In this situation, I decided that I should be attacking the king somehow, though just checking the king with a silver here wouldn't really be accomplishing all that much. Sure, I'd take the knight, but then the king would just walk away. Instead, I decided to drop the gold here instead, with the intention that this is actually a threat mate. Of course, after rook takes and king runs, it's a mate. But if the king runs right away, now I have the gold covering this square, and I can take this way with the gold instead of the rook and potentially move the gold with a discard check later. I also can make moves like a pawn drop here to cut off this king's escape route, and a knight drop here to try and mess up the silver and break apart the king's defense. It doesn't seem like all of these attacks are working out immediately, and in post-game analysis, we did find that my attack was eventually going to checkmate the king, but I'm not sure if we found the best line for the opponent, and I could still be at a disadvantage here. It's a very unclear position, and the move I chose is a difficult move to make, especially because this kind of gold drop is very heavy. But it's not clear to me whether or not it was actually the best option. Yeah, I think it is. My idea here is actually kind of tricky. But basically, right now this is threat mate, because I'll cover this square with the dragon itself. After the king runs, I want to drop a pawn here. After rook takes, I want to drop a knight here. And if silver takes, I go ahead and take. Because then the king has to go here or here. I mean, probably here, right? That's what makes sense. Maybe I don't drop the pawn then. Is the silver better or worse for me to have here? Heck. Hard to say. Hard to say. Easy to get scared and tries to defend, I'll win. Another option is not to take with the dragon, but to take with gold, so I get the gold slightly closer. Okay, he will go for it. I never take the token there. Because the token is, I mean, the more I trade, right, the better his attack is going to be, and my whole point here is that my king is safer over here anyway, and this gold is not helping anymore. So I don't need to start trading stuff. If he gives me a ton of time, I'll just check with him. Okay. Oh wait, what? He just blundered mate. I take the knight, his king runs. This is Sune. Well, That is the game. Okay. Exciting. Very exciting. Glad I recorded that game. Alright, everyone. Thank you all for so much for watching and following this game. It was a very exciting game to play, and I can't wait because there are absolutely going to be more games like it in the future. If you want to see more content like this, I would say to like and subscribe, so please do. But really what you should do is join the Shogi community if you haven't already. And if you've never played before, play your first game and just learn. It really is a wonderful game, and there is a great Shogi Discord, which is going to be linked in the description below. So if you can do anything, please join the Discord if you haven't already, and start learning to play Shogi. It will be one of the best games you've ever played. And then, like and subscribe as well. Thank you all so much for joining. Bye-bye!